Establishment of Pakistan and initial difficulties. Pakistan was established as the fifth most populous and biggest Muslim state on 14 August 1947. Lord Mountbatten, the last Viceroy of India, came to Karachi to hand over power to the first Constituent Assembly of Pakistan. Lord Mountbatten addressed the Assembly and briefly highlighted the events which had led to the creation of Pakistan as an independent and sovereign state. The emergence of Pakistan after a long and arduous freedom struggle was in fact a great victory of the democratic idea of life. The staunch faith of the people in the idea of Pakistan and their ready acceptance of the dynamic leadership of the Quaid-e-Azam made it possible and easier to achieve Pakistan in the face of most stubborn opposition from the British and the Hindus. The Muslims of India happily and valiantly laid down their lives and properties to achieve a destination in which they saw the fulfillment of their dreams of living an independent life. The Quaid-e-Azam won Pakistan for his people with his unflinching spirit and people's trust in his sincere and dauntless leadership. The people were profoundly grateful to the father of the nation, the Quaid-e-Azam, in his address to the nation on 15th August 1947 said, "My thoughts are with those valiant fighters in our cause who readily sacrificed all they had, including their lives, to make Pakistan possible." The Quaid-e-Azam had already been elected as the first president of the first Constituent Assembly of Pakistan on 11th August 1947. Mr. Justice Muhammad Sharif was assigned to the job of drafting the constitution with certain modifications in the Act of 1935. The Quaid-e-Azam in his address to the first Constituent Assembly at the time of transfer of power declared that Pakistan wanted to have cordial and friendly relations with its neighbor India. The Quaid-e-Azam had a stupendous task of building the structure of the newly born state of Pakistan, a federal constitution in the light of the recommendations made by Justice Sharif was enforced, in which the five provinces were the federating units. The Quaid-e-Azam immediately set himself to consolidating the administrative machinery of Pakistan. Congress reaction on the emergence of Pakistan. The British and Hindus at least had to surrender before the exemplary struggle of the Muslims of India. The Hindus and Congress, however, did not accept the partition and emergence of Pakistan from the cover of their heart. They always looked for opportunities to create problems for the newly born state of Pakistan. The Indian leaders had accepted the partition in the hope of undoing it soon and re-establishing their hegemony over the whole of the subcontinent. According to Beecher, most of the Congress leaders, and Nehru among them, subscribed to the view that Pakistan was not a viable state, politically, economically, geographically, or militarily, and that sooner or later the areas which had ceded would be compelled by force of circumstances to return to the fold. With these sentiments, the Congress leaders had accepted Pakistan as for them Pakistan was a transient phase, a tactical retreat that did not affect their strategic aims. But the Quaid-e-Azam declared Pakistan had come to exist forever and it will be, by the grace of God, exist forever. The Congress leaders did their utmost to damage Pakistan. They adopted measures with the connivance of the British and particularly with the blessing of Mountbatten to pile problems for Pakistan so that it should not survive as an independent and sovereign state. The Indian government adopted every possible means to strangle Pakistan's economy. Due to these conspiracies and mischiefs by the Congress leaders, Pakistan has to face great difficulties which are given below. First problem was formation of government machinery. Pakistan came into existence under the most appalling conditions. The government of Pakistan could not get enough time to set up workable administrative machinery because of the great difficulties created by the Congress. The Indian government adopted delaying tactics in transferring the government servants and official record, which aggravated the situation. The immediate task, therefore, before the nation after independence was to establish a workable administrative and government machinery to run the affairs of the newly born state. The biggest administrative problem facing Pakistan was the acute shortage of competent and experienced personnel in the central and provincial governments. There were serious deficiencies in cadres of general administration as well as in the technical services. The Quaid-e-Azam paid his immediate attention towards setting up of the administrative machinery. He became the first Governor-General of Pakistan. He had full authority on civil as well as armed forces of Pakistan. He formed his cabinet with Liaquat Ali Khan as the first Prime Minister of Pakistan. Karachi was made the capital of Pakistan. Special arrangements were made to bring officials who had opted for Pakistan. The Quaid-e-Azam took a number of steps to overcome the administrative problems of the new state. Central Secretariat was established at Karachi. The government officials began working with zeal and zest and sentiments of sacrifice. There was no office equipment, no furniture, no official record and no stationery to pull the official routine. The government officials, full with national sentiments, did not care for the inadequacies and set to face the challenge under the dynamic leadership of the Quaid-e-Azam. An agreement with the Tata Air Company was concluded for the transportation of the government officials and their families. In order to put the administrative machinery on smooth sailing, the civil services were reorganized in the light of the formula given by Chaudhry Muhammad Ali. The civil services rules were drafted, accounts and foreign services were introduced, and the first pay commission was set up in February 1948. Headquarters of Army, Navy and Air Force were set up at different places. The Quaid-e-Azam advised the government officials to work with sincerity and devotion. He made it clear to the government officials that they were not the rulers but were the servants of the people. The Quaid-e-Azam addressed the government officials on 11th October 1947 and said, "This is a challenge for us. If we were to survive as a nation, we will have to face these difficulties with a stern hand. Our people are disorganized and worried because of the problems they are facing. We have to encourage them to pull them out of despair. It has put great difficulty on the administration and the people looking to you for guidance." Another major issue was the division of armed forces and military assets. When Pakistan created, it faced acute threats to its security. For the security and safeguard of its territory, Pakistan needed armed forces and military equipment. The question of division of armed forces and army equipment became a sensitive issue for Pakistan, which demanded the immediate division of army assets and personnel. On the other hand, the British Sea Field Marshal Uchinnik was in favor of maintaining the unity of the armed forces and was opposed to division of army assets. On the insistence of Muslim League, however, the government had to accept the demand for the division of military assets. On June 3, 1947, Field Marshal Uchin Leek was entrusted with the job of dividing the armed forces and army assets. Congress and Indian cabinet ministers created many hurdles in the division of the military assets. The assets were to be divided with a ratio of 36% and 64% between Pakistan and India respectively. All the ordnance factories, 16 in number, were located in the Indian Union. The Indian leaders were stubbornly opposed to the transfer of any ordnance factory to Pakistan. They were not even prepared to part with any piece of machinery which may have been given to Pakistan. A program for the transfer and division of army assets were chalked out. It was decided that the army soldiers and men who opted either for Pakistan or India should report in their countries of choice by 15 August 1947. It was also decided that until the completion of division of armed forces and military assets, the armed forces would remain under the control of one commander. The armed forces personnel were given full liberty to opt for any country. It was decided that the Muslim regiments would go to Pakistan, while the Hindu and other non-Muslim regiments would go to India. No problem was faced with regard to the division of army men and soldiers, but the Indian leaders created many difficulties in the division of military assets and equipment. The equipment which were given to Pakistan were mostly in shabby condition. The machinery was obsolete and out of order. A financial settlement was arranged and rupees 60 million in lieu of Pakistan's share of ordnance factories was given to Pakistan. With this amount, the ordnance factory at Wah was established. The British commander supervising the division of assets could not get rightful share for Pakistan in the military assets. Field Marshal Uchin Lake, who supervised and conducted the division of the assets, was bitterly criticized and compelled to resign. In the face of this determined position, there were no means by which Pakistan could get its due share and had to be content with what was given to her. There was another major issue, the massacre of Muslim refugees and their influx in Pakistan. When the movement for Pakistan was going on, the Hindus and Sikhs, with the blessing and connivance of the British rulers, had on many occasions slaughtered the Muslim masses in India. These communal riots before the partition of India had been local affairs which erupted for a few days and then died down, leaving no significant impact on the people. The 1946 massacre of Muslims of Bihar was the first organized attempt of extermination of Muslims. At the time of creation of Pakistan, the problem of refugees became a serious and difficult issue for the government. The Hindus and Sikhs had chalked out a systematic program for the massacre of Muslim refugees migrating to Pakistan. The Punjab massacre planned by the Sikhs were not only on a much larger scale, they also differed in kind from all previous disorders. They had a defined political objectives and to gain it, controlled violence and terror were used. The Sikhs carried military offensive on the refugees that would end only when the objective was accomplished. They had at their disposal the trained and armed forces of Hindu and Sikh states and had planned the massacres at a time when the government of East and West Punjab were busy in the reorganization and therefore least capable of paying an effective attention to any other matter. The Hindu and Sikh rulers of states played the most heinous and ignoble role in this terrible tragedy in the history of mankind. They fully cooperated with the Hindus and Sikhs in the ruthless slaughter of the Muslim refugees. In the Punjab, the state troops of Patiala Kapurthala, Alwar and Bharatpur joined with Hindus and Sikhs bands in the systematic extermination of the Muslim population. The state troops were employed in the massacre of Muslims with Hindus and Sikhs who were allowed to kill and mutilate Muslim women, men and children. The states of Kapurthala and Patiala provided secret bases to riding Sikhs and Hindus to operate from. Arms and ammunition were also provided by the state governments to Sikhs and Hindus for killing the Muslims. The Muslim massacres were not only confined to the countryside, worse things were happening in the cities. On August 15, 1947, the day of Indian liberation was celebrated very strangely in the Punjab. A Sikh mob paraded a number of Muslim women naked through the streets of Amritsar, raped them on the roads, and then cut some of them to pieces with kirpans and burnt the alive. In this way, the revenge for the partition of India was taken from the Muslims. The Sikhs were clearing East Punjab of Muslims, butchering hundreds daily, forcing thousands to flee, and burning Muslim villages. The Sikh Jathas always attacked the Muslim migrants on their way to Pakistan. These raiding Jathas were given full protection by the authorities. The Sikhs slaughtered the poor men, women, young and old in the cold-blooded. The mirror children were killed in a ruthless manner in the presence of their helpless parents. Women were raped and young girls were abducted. Some migrants undertook their journey to Pakistan in trains under the protection of police and army. They also met the same fate. The trains were stopped at certain places and Hindus and Sikhs armed with deadly weapons will suddenly appear and begin killing the helpless refugees. They looted everything and left the trains in most miserable and horrible conditions. The trains reached Pakistan with large number of dead bodies and wounded persons to tell the tales of terrible atrocities committed by Hindus and Sikhs. These were very hard days for the Muslims and the government of Pakistan. The Pakistan government was in great difficulty to provide shelter and food to the refugees who were pouring in large numbers. The Quaid-e-Azam was greatly perturbed over the miserable condition of the refugees. He vehemently protested to the Indian authorities over the atrocities committed on the Muslims. The Indian leader did not pay any heed to these protests and quickly set with the most inhuman and atrocious mass killing of the Muslims of India. The first and the immediate problem which invited attention of the government was the rehabilitation of the refugees who had to leave their homes to begin a new life in Pakistan. The refugees in miserable conditions were pushed in Pakistan to create difficulties for the government of Pakistan, which was busy in establishing itself. Millions of mutilated persons with no sustenance were made to leave their earth and homes for Pakistan simply to create economic problems for the newly born country and its government. The sinister objective was to overwhelm Pakistan with a torrent of uprooted and tormented refugees before the government of Pakistan had time to set up a workable administrative machinery. Quaid-e-Azam met this challenge with courage and determination. He moved his headquarters to Lahore to give his personal attention to the grave people of refugees. Quaid-e-Azam Relief Fund was created in which rich and wealthy people were asked to donate generously for the rehabilitation of poor refugees. Quaid-e-Azam handled the situation arising out of the influx of refugees with vision, courage and wisdom. He made stirring speeches to revive faith and confidence in the distressed refugees. He said, "Do not be overwhelmed by the enormity of the task. There are many examples in the history of young nations building themselves up by sheer determination and force of character. You have to develop the spirit of Mujahid. You are a nation whose history is full with tales of heroism and bravery. Live up to your traditions and add to another chapter of glory. The Quaid-e-Azam also appealed to the people to extend every possible assistance to their brethren. The people quickly responded to his call and came forward with every possible help and assistance for the refugees. There was another issue of the division of financial assets. The Indian leaders adopted every possible means to strangle Pakistan's economy so that the newly born state should not survive as an independent state. At the time of creation of Pakistan, there was a cash balance of Rs 4 billion which was lying in the Reserve Bank. This amount was to be divided proportionately amongst the two states by a committee. When the division was decided, Pakistan was to get 750 million of rupees. The Indian authorities refused to transfer the amount on one pretext or the other. The first installment of Rs 200 million was paid. The rest of the amount was stopped on the advice of Sardar Patel, who threatened that the amount shall not be paid until Pakistan reorganized India's right over Kashmir. Mr. Gandhi intervened by a threat of going to hunger strike if the amount was not paid to Pakistan. On Mr. Gandhi's insistence, Indian government gave another installment of 500 million to Pakistan. The remaining amount of 50 million has not been paid until now. The issue of canal water dispute was also a major issue. The water dispute had its origin in the partition of Punjab. It came to light on April 1, 1948, when India cut off the flow of canal waters to West Punjab in Pakistan, causing dire threat of famine and loss of crops in West Punjab. As it had already been stated in early pages that the Indian leaders were bent upon strangling Pakistan's economy at the very beginning of its existence. The stoppage of canal waters therefore was a dangerous move on the part of the Indian leaders to satisfy their ignoble designs of damaging Pakistan's economy. West Pakistan was a fertile soil but hot and dry climate. The rainfall is scanty and undependable. Agriculture, the mainstay of Pakistan's economy, is therefore dependent almost entirely upon irrigation by canals drawn from the Indus and its five tributaries. The three western rivers, the Indus and Jhelum and the Chenab, flow into Pakistan from the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and eastern rivers, the Ravi, the Beas and the Satluj, enter Pakistan from India. In fact, Pakistan's agriculture vitally and entirely depends upon the Indus water system, which is really a source of life for West Pakistan. On the other hand, India has mainly river systems which smoothly flow and fall into the sea unhindered. Much of the Indian territory also gets enough rain to support agriculture without irrigation. It was decided at the time of partition that the canal headworks would be given to India, which enabled India to cause a serious shortage of water. It also built dams over those rivers which flow to Pakistan from India. Before partition, India planned to build Bukhara Dam on the river Satluj with a storage capacity of 4 million acre-feet. But before it could be completed, the downstream province of Punjab complained that the operation of Bukhara Dam would adversely affect the functioning of its link canals. The partition of Punjab cut across the rivers and canals, making India and Pakistan upper and lower beneficiaries of water. India promised not to interfere with the waters of those rivers. which were very vital for the irrigation of West Pakistan. But only after 6 months of partition, India stopped the waters of the rivers Ravi and Satluj, which was a grave blow to the agriculture of West Pakistan. Pakistan were managed to overcome its problem arising out of blockade of water with the assistance of the World Bank. Pakistan also purchased water from India on paying to avoid economic disaster. The canal water dispute remained the main source of trouble between the two countries and had adversely affected their mutual relations. On September 19, 1960, an agreement was concluded between the two countries which is known as Indus Basin Water Treaty. President Ayub Khan represented Pakistan while India was represented by her Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. According to the treaty, the waters of the Ravi Beas, the river Ravi and the river Satluj would be used by India, while the waters of the river Chenab, the river Jhelum and the river Indus would be given to Pakistan. It was also decided that to make the best use of the waters of these rivers, two dams, five barrages and seven link canals would be built. India would pay 200 million rupees of the total cost of this project, while the remaining amount would be paid by the friendly countries of Pakistan. Pakistan to greater extent overcame its irrigation problems by this treaty. There was another issue of the accession of the princely states. The Indian princely states, numbering 562, comprised of one-third of the Indian territory and a quarter of population. These states were not the part of the administrative setup of British India. They were ruled by the Indian princes who had agreed to come under the paramountcy of the British Empire. These states were internally independent but came under the British hegemony with regard to their defence and foreign affairs. When the country was divided, the division of the princely states was also considered. On May 12, 1946, the cabinet mission advised the princes to extend cooperation for framing of constitution, so that their interests should also be safeguarded. The cabinet mission also urged the rulers of the princely states to conform to the wishes while deciding the accession of their states with one dominion or the other. The cabinet mission informed the states that the British control over states would come to an end with the partition of India, and all treaties between the states and the British government would cease to exist from that date. The British government announced on the February 20, 1947 that the British paramountcy would not be transferred to any government of British India. The British government reiterated that British paramountcy over India and princely states would end in June 1948, the date set for the partition of India. The government left it to the will of the states to decide whether they wanted to remain independent or join any government after partition. By 15 August 1947, all princely states except Junagadh, Kashmir and Hyderabad had announced their accession with either Pakistan or India. These states were to fall victim to Indian aggression later on. Junagadh. Junagadh was a small maritime state 300 miles down the coast from Karachi. It had an area of 3,337 square miles and a population of about 700,000. It was ruled by a Muslim ruler while the majority of population comprised Hindu and non-Muslim residents. After independence, the state announced its accession to Pakistan because it could maintain its link with Pakistan by sea. The Muslim ruler of Manawdar, a smaller state contiguous to the Junagadh, also acceded to Pakistan. The accession of Junagadh and Manawdar were accepted by the government of Pakistan and the Indian government was accordingly informed. The Governor-General of India, Lord Mountbatten, telegraphed to the Governor-General of Pakistan and said, "Such acceptance of accession by Pakistan cannot but be regarded by the Government of India as an encroachment on Indian sovereignty and territory and inconsistent with the friendly relations that should exist between the two dominions. This action in utter violation of principles on which partition was agreed upon and effected. With these protests, the Indian government took steps to resolve the problem by force. Junagadh was surrounded by the Indian troops. The Jam Sahib of Navangarh, a leading Hindu prince of the area, urged the Indian government to take immediate steps to ensure protection of Kathiawar states which had acceded to India and which were regarded as threatened by Junagadh's accession to Pakistan. An economic blockade of Junagadh was imposed and rail communication with India was cut off. In consequence, Junagadh's revenue from customs and villages dwindled, and there was a serious shortage of food. The provisional government of Junagadh, with Gandhi's nephew Shamaldas Gandhi as president, was set up at Bombay. The provisional government moved its headquarters to Rajkot near Junagadh, recruited volunteers and carried out raids on Junagadh. The government of Pakistan offered to settle the dispute by negotiations. The government of India was however bent upon settling the matter by force. The blockade and raids had created such chaotic conditions in Junagadh by the end of October 1947 that the Muslim ruler had to leave hurriedly for Karachi with his family. On November 7, 1947, the Liberation Army of 20,000 men with armored cars and other modern weapons entered Junagadh. 2 days later, India assumed control of the entire state. The government of Pakistan strongly protested on illegal occupation of Junagadh by Indian Army and urged the Indian government to withdraw its forces. The government of India paid no heed and held a referendum after 2 months under the supervision of its armed forces. Majority of voters cast their votes as expected in favor of accession to India. Pakistan took up the matter with the UN, which is still undecided. Another issue of accession of any state was Kashmir issue. The state of Jammu and Kashmir was the most important state in the subcontinent. It is situated in the northern part of Indo-Pakistan subcontinent. It was the biggest state in India and occupied 84,471 square miles of territory. It had its boundaries with Tibet, China, Russia and Afghanistan, which have placed in a great strategic position. The total population of the state according to 1941 census was about 14,000, which comprised a majority of Muslims in every province of the valley. The state of Jammu and Kashmir was ruled by Dogra ruler Gulab Singh. The Dogra dynasty had purchased the state from the British government in 1846 for 7.5 million of rupees. The state was sold to Gulab Singh by the Treaty of Amritsar. Gulab Singh and his successors had established a despotic regime and ruled the state in an autocratic manner. The Muslims in particular were ruthlessly subjected to the most inhuman treatment. They were heavily taxed and made to live a very poor life. The Hindus were given preference in government jobs over the Muslims. Cruel punishment were awarded to the Muslim inhabitants for a simple and minor breach of law. The first battle for the freedom of state was fought in 1930. It was in consequence to the repressive and arbitrary rule of Dogra dynasty. The movement was organized and led by Sheikh Abdullah and Chaudhry Ghulam Abbas from the platform of Kashmir Muslim Conference. The movement was quelled with the assistance of the British government. The Maharaja, as usual, adopted repressive and tyrannical measures to suppress the movement. There were large-scale arrests and freeings. Muslims from the neighboring areas entered Kashmir to help their Muslim brethren. A commission under Sir Glancy was appointed with recommended few constitutional reforms. Geographically, the state is a continuation of the plains of West Pakistan into mountains. The rivers Indus, Jhelum and Chenab, which are the source of life for Pakistan, flow into Pakistan from the state of Jammu and Kashmir, making it a whole geographical unit. The state had its road and rail links with Pakistan. Its imports and exports moved through Pakistan. Timber, which was state's most important and lucrative source of revenue, was exported by being floated down the rivers into Pakistan. The cultural connections between the Muslims of the state and that to Pakistan are so close as to make them virtually identical. The destiny of Kashmir and West Pakistan is linked together by nature and by all possible interests such as economic, religious, cultural and strategic. When the subcontinent was divided, the state was ruled by Maharaja Hari Singh, although was a tyrannical ruler. The people of Kashmir at the time of partition felt that in the view of Muslim majority population of the state, ruler would accede to Pakistan and they would soon be relieved from the oppressive Dogra rule. The Maharaja came under immense pressure from the public to announce the state's accession to Pakistan at early date. The Hindu ruler did not want to accede to Pakistan. In fact, he wanted to accede to India in spite of all the factors favoring state's accession to Pakistan. When the public pressure increased, the Hindu ruler, in order to divert the attention of the people, concluded a treaty with Pakistan. The government of Pakistan, through this treaty, was assured that efforts shall be made to keep the state situation normal and that cultural and religious connections with Pakistan would be maintained. With the conclusion of this treaty, a large-scale Muslim massacre was planned to turn the Muslim majority into minority. The poor Muslim inhabitants were subjected to the most tyrannical rule. The people revolted against these mass killings of the innocent people and the despotic policies of the Hindu ruler. More than 237,000 innocent Muslims were executed and nearly 500,000 were made to leave their homes and seek shelter in Pakistan. The Hindu Maharaja could not control the uprising and made an appeal to Indian government to extend assistance to the control of the situation. The Indian government put a condition and first asked for the accession of the valley with India. The Hindu ruler immediately complied and announced the accession of Jammu and Kashmir with India. The government at once landed its armed forces in Kashmir. The Quaid-e-Azam, the Governor-General of Pakistan, ordered General Gracie, the then C-in-C of Pakistan Army, to attack Kashmir, which he refused to carry out on the pretext that he could not take such action without the orders of the Supreme Commander of Indo-Pakistan Armed Forces. The people of Kashmir fought in a valiant manner against Indian forces. The volunteers from tribal areas entered Kashmir to help and assist their Muslim brethren and bravely fought by their side. Most of the area was liberated from the Indian occupation. Had the Indian forces had entered Kashmir, the Pakistani borders were in danger. Pakistan had to move its army for the protection of its frontiers. A war between India and Pakistan began. Indian forces suffered heavy casualties and the Indian position in the valley aggravated. Pakistan got hold of important posts and places. India, in view of its bad military position in Jammu and Kashmir, made a frantic appeal to the UN on 1st January 1948. India complained that Pakistan had committed aggression by sending its forces to Jammu and Kashmir as the state had already acceded to India. Pakistan rejected India's plea and said that only the people of Kashmir had the right to decide the fate of Valley. The Security Council passed two resolutions on 3rd August 1948 and 5th January 1949 and urged the belligerent states to stop fighting forthwith. It was decided by the UN that there would be boundary line drawn under the supervision of UNCIP, United Nations Commission for India and Pakistan. Both the countries should withdraw to their previous position so that the verdict of the people of Kashmir for accession either to India or Pakistan could be ascertained. Pakistan, in spite of her better military position, accepted ceasefire because she wanted the settlement of issue in a peaceful manner. The Indian government, on the other hand, did not want to lose Kashmir. Sheikh Abdullah, who by now had been influenced by Gandhi and Nehru, also did not want to see Kashmir going to Pakistan. In a press statement in Delhi on October 21, 1947, Sheikh Abdullah said, due to the strategic position that Jammu and Kashmir holds, if the state joins India dominion, Pakistan would be completely encircled. By getting hold of Kashmir, India would be in a commanding position against Pakistan. India therefore immediately accepted the ceasefire. After the ceasefire, India did not hold plebiscite in the Valley of Kashmir, as was decided by the resolutions of the UN. The problem is still unresolved and has created a perilous situation in the region. There have been several efforts to solve the Kashmir problem which all proved futile because of the stubborn attitude of India. Many UN commissions have visited Pakistan and India to sort out solution of the problem. But so far, there has been no success. The Kashmir problem could not be settled in spite of the best efforts of the UN. India rejected UN proposals about Kashmir in 1949. In 1950, a delegation under Sir Dixon came, but Indian government did not accept its recommendations. In 1951 and 1952, Dr. Graham came with a commission whose proposals were rejected by the Indian government. In 1954, India held a so-called plebiscite in the valley under the supervision of its armed forces. A Bog assembly was set up which confirmed Kashmir's accession with India. Pakistan refused to accept these elections. The Kashmir problem is the main hurdle in the way of good relations between Pakistan and India. This problem caused armed conflict between India and Pakistan in September 1965. Hyderabad. Like Kashmir, Hyderabad was also a very important state of the subcontinent. It had an area of 82,000 square miles and a population of 160,000. It was a rich state and its annual revenue were 260 million rupees. It had its own system of currency and postage stamps. The population comprised of both Hindus and Muslims. The Hindus and non-Muslims were in majority while its ruler Nizam was a Muslim. The Nizam had the title of His Exalted Highness and was very popular amongst his people, both Hindus and Muslims. He was a generous and kind ruler and looked after his people like his own children. He was considered as a faithful ally of the British government. Hyderabad, being a prosperous and populous state and because of its prestige and importance, felt justified in maintaining an independent status of sovereign state. However, the Viceroy Lord Mountbatten made it clear to the Nizam that it was not possible for the British government to agree to the dominion status for the state. Mountbatten also referred to the geographical location of the state and was of the opinion that the state could not remain independent for long as it was surrounded by the Indian territory. He impressed upon the Nizam to accede to India. Being a Muslim, the Nizam of Hyderabad would have desired to accede to Pakistan if ever need arose. The Indian government, knowing the intention of Nizam being pressurizing him for acceding to India, Lord Mountbatten, the Governor-General of India, did best to bring Hyderabad in India's fold. The Nizam was not willing to sign the document for accession to India. He was willing to enter into a treaty with India in respect to defence, foreign affairs and communication. The government of India, however, insisted on accession and did not agree to anything else. A standstill agreement between India and Hyderabad was concluded on November 29, 1407. The Nizam also gave a secret promise to Mountbatten not to accede to Pakistan. K.M. Munshi was appointed India's agent in Hyderabad. He was a staunch believer of United India. After taking charge, he began inciting the Hindu population. Allegations of violating the standstill agreement were levelled against Hyderabad. Nizam was asked to arrest Kazim Rizvi, a national leader of Ittihadul Muslimin. Threats of military action against Hyderabad were given by Nehru. On August 24, 1940, Hyderabad filed a complaint before the Security Council of the UN. But before the Security Council could arrange the hearing of the complaint, Indian Armed Forces entered Hyderabad. After a brief resistance, the Hyderabad Army surrendered on September 17, 1948. In due course, the state was dismembered and incorporated into the different provinces of the Indian Union. The complaint of Hyderabad before the Security Council is still pending. Another issue was economic problems. Hindus and Congress had not accepted the Pakistan. They always looked for opportunities to undermine and harm Pakistan. They adopted every possible means to strangle Pakistan's economy besides creating the other problems, like massacre of refugees, accession of princely states, which have already discussed. In order to destroy Pakistan's economic condition, India denied Pakistan equitable share in the financial and military assets. False propaganda was made about Pakistan's viability in the economic sector in order to create doubts among the people about Pakistan's unstable economic condition. When Pakistan came into existence, it mostly consisted of those areas which were economically backward and underdeveloped. These areas were mostly producers of raw material which could not be utilized locally because related processing industries were located elsewhere. The British government had not paid any attention toward the economic uplift of these areas. The agricultural system was obsolete and outdated, which added to the economic backwardness of the areas forming part of Pakistan. The geographical location of Pakistan too created economic problems for Pakistan. Pakistan was divided into two parts, each located 1,000 miles away from each other. The two wings of the country had no geographical links between them. There was another issue, linguistic riots and political problems. Before the partition of India, Urdu was the language of the Muslims of the subcontinent. It was the interpreter of the desires and needs of the Muslims and was the symbol of their cultural identity and image. Urdu played an important role in the demand of Pakistan during freedom movement. The Muslims, in view of importance and the role played by Urdu in the freedom struggle, genuinely believed that Urdu would be the national language of Pakistan after independence. The Muslims therefore found themselves associated and attached with the Urdu language and diligently worked for its promotion and safeguard. After the establishment of Pakistan, the Quaid-e-Azam had declared on several occasions that Urdu would be the national language of Pakistan. He declared that the regional languages would also be promoted at the regional or provincial level, but Urdu would be the medium of communication on the national level. The separatist elements who had become active from the very beginning of the establishment of Pakistan criticized the statement of the Quaid-e-Azam about making Urdu as national language of Pakistan. They were, however, snubbed by the Quaid, who rejected all objections against the Urdu being a national language. The separatist elements, who were silenced by the Quaid-e-Azam, did not stop their subversive activities against Urdu language. Consequently, the linguistic riots erupted in East Pakistan against the enforcement of Urdu as a national language of Pakistan. The unwise and narrow-minded political leaders involved the student community in these riots, resulting in the death of a number of students in the police firing. The agitations on the language issue were aimless and based on political motives to destabilize the government. The two wings, East and Pakistan, were the parts of the federal system of Pakistan in which one national language was a prerequisite. Urdu, being the language of the Muslims of the subcontinent before partition, was rightly adopted as the language of two parts of the country. Bengali or any other language enjoyed a regional or provincial character. The demand to make Bengali as the other language was politically motivated to sever the designs of the separatist elements working on the behest of India. The political problems of Pakistan at the time of emergence. Immediately after partition, Pakistan had to face great problems in the political sphere. Of the many political problems, the issue of provincialism was the most alarming issue for the stability and solidity of the new country. The linguistic agitation added fuel to the fire in airing sentiments of the provincialism. Geographically, East Pakistan is situated at the farthest end of the subcontinent, which further its mental alienation from the rest of the country. Due to its geographical location, the local cultures of other parts of the subcontinent could not make their roots in the cultural aspect of East Pakistan. Consequently, anybody coming from other parts was taken as a stranger and looked upon with suspicion and feeling of hatred. A sense of insecurity and deprivation developed amongst the people of West Pakistan, especially because the capital was situated in West Pakistan. They always felt alienated, which gave rise to the feelings of separation and provincialism. The western part of the country was a more developed region even before the partition, which naturally had acquired strength in the different government departments. The monopoly of West Pakistanis in the government department strengthened the apprehension of the people of West Pakistan that they were being ignored of their rights in the national progress. They held the people of West Pakistan responsible for the usurpation of their rights. The Quaid-e-Azam warned the people about this grave tendency of provincialism. He addressed the nation and said, "In unity lies strength. So long as we are united, we emerge victorious and strong. If we are not united, we will become weak and disgraced. We all are Pakistanis. None of us is a Punjabi, Sindhi, Balochi, Pathan or Bengali. Every one of us should think, feel and act as a Pakistani, and we should feel proud of being Pakistani alone." Quaid-e-Azam made personal tours of various provinces to attend to problems. He urged hope in the people of the country and reminded them of their responsibilities as members of a free and independent nation. There was another and last issue was Tehreek-e-Khatm-e-Nubuwwat. Pakistan was achieved on the basis of Islamic ideology, which meant that the Islamic system would be introduced in Pakistan after independence. The people of Pakistan therefore were not prepared to allow any other concept or faith to exist or flourish in Pakistan, which was not based on the principles of Islam or which was in any way detrimental to the tenets of Islam. There is a complete agreement among all factions of the Muslims that the Qadianis were out of the fold of Islam because they do not believe in the finality of prophethood, which is the basic tenet of Islam. The people of Pakistan have been demanding from time to time that Qadianis should be declared as non-Muslims. The Tehreek-e-Khatm-e-Nabuwat was launched in 1952 with a prime objective of explaining the finality of prophethood and to curb the influence of Qadiani organization. In March 1953, the Qadianis once again emerged with their nefarious propaganda, which invited violent agitation by the people of Punjab. Martial law was proclaimed in Lahore by Major General Muhammad Azam Khan (GOC) to restore the law and order. The prominent leaders of the movement of Khatm-e-Nabuwwat, Maulana Abul Ala Maududi, Maulana Abdul Sattar Khan Niazi, were arrested. They were sentenced to death by the military court. The order of the military court had to be withdrawn in view of pressing public demands. Qadiani movement did not extinguish completely and continued with the time. It once again aroused deep public indignation in 1974 and aggravated the law and order situation. The communal riots erupted, causing great deal of damage to the public property and life. The people vehemently demanded that the Qadianis should be declared as non-Muslims. The then government of Pakistan under Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, in view of the public demand, declared the Qadianis as non-Muslim by especially amending the 1973 Constitution of Pakistan, and it was a great achievement of the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto.